Well, thank you, Natalia, for the introduction, and thank you to the speakers that have been given a good base for the next instrument that I will introduce. And I think each of these instruments just work if they are well balanced together. We can discuss for hours and years probably about participation. At the end, all of us are participants. We are the people, and some of them have a certain knowledge. You may call them professionals, and you have to trust professionals. Sometimes people who have more knowledge on certain things, because you have to do things together. So the border between these professionals and non-professionals, or the members of our society, it's liquid. But at the end, we want to move forward somehow as a society. So I'm showing this one instrument, and as Natalia was introducing me, we as a company, we're called Phase 1. That's German. It stands for Phase 0. And the beginning of projects where things are very crucial, and this is where you and Ukraine is heavily in now. And in this little niche, we are working as consultants, as architects, and our regular life is to define, either with the investors or with the users, and maybe with participation of neighbors, etc., what is the need of that specific place, and then create a document, of course, which is then the briefing for the professionals who are working. And then these professional designers, they come up with ideas and they present options where you can choose, and where someone has to make a decision. This is maybe the best solution. This is a project in Kuwait here, by the way. And then a group, which you call a jury, makes decisions. So this is a regular life of architecture competitions, design competitions, or competitions for whatever. It's a surprising maybe that's, I mean, the idea of competitions, it's not only limited to architecture and urban design. I mean, there are product design competitions, there are competitions for exhibition design, there's competition is everywhere, also at the Olympics. It's at the end a competition. This was meant to be in an order, these 4 pictures. So we're starting off in the left bottom. Of course, Germany is our home country, so we've been working a lot in various places for all kinds of projects, and then we moved on and worked actually all over the world in different places. Some of them were just shown by Lilith. But why I'm here probably mostly is because we had also 2 major projects, actually 3, but 2 were extremely important for us in Kiev recently. One was the competition for the Maidan Revolution Memorial and Museum. So at the end, it's 2 competitions in 1. And the other one was a memorial center for Babin Yar. So these projects, they bring me here, and I'm very happy to be here, even though the context is not very happy at all. But it's nice here, and I can only congratulate the organizers of the event and all of you that you are here. And as Lilith just said, it's so important. And I think the composition of speakers is also super interesting and very successful. Well, of course, the projects that I've shown before, they are kind of in normal life in safe places and well-developed countries, most of them. But our world is facing challenges of another scale, not only the use of a neighboring area and a square somewhere. There's big questions that we have to face. There's not enough space for us. Our climate is under heavy attack. And of course, here in Ukraine, you have a very specific attack. So the question is, how does this little instrument of design competitions can contribute to make this better, or should we just give up and say, this is a nice game for good times, and now we have to do other things. At the end, I think it is worth. It was mentioned the term trust. And we need orientation, we need legislation, etc. And design competitions have obviously shown in history and they have survived history, that it is a very flexible and helpful and established instrument. And I think the fact that it's established is already a good step forward to trust in the process and to trust into the people who are involved, because you always give up certain power if you are delegating things, and if you delegate a project into a competition, you may not be involved yourself, but you believe, okay, these guys who take care of the project will do a good job. And if there's a certain rule for the game, it helps a lot. And this is the advantage of design competitions. There's a clear frame. There are principles that are valid since 150 years, and they're pretty much the same since then. And they will also help people who have doubts. Was mentioned, these things take too long, etc., etc. No, actually they are quite fast, because you have a clear time frame for a competition, and then you make a big step in your project, whatever the project may be. So after people have exercised competitions, most of them are quite convinced that it's a good idea. The doubts, they are only for those who have heard rumors about it. At the end, as I said, it's only a small little instrument, and I like this quote here from Edward Lorenz quite well. There's, I mean, but even these small little instruments, they can affect our world. And us professionals, architects, and one of the big advantages, I mean, personally for me, I have a fantastic position. I mean, all the other poor architects, they only work by themselves, and then they submit a project, and they are very lonesome in a way. And I meet all these guys always for party and when they present. So, but at the end, it's quite good people. They're enthusiastic people. They are willing, and they're convinced about their work, but most of them are also convinced that it's better to work together, because architects and planners are, generally speaking, used to collaborate. Because, I mean, all of us know we are only a little share of a group of people who are necessary to implement a project. So you can send these guys even into the desert of Arabia, and they will come up with smart solutions for sustainable living environments, for safe resources, and for fair process. But now to come to be a bit more concrete, I will show examples, other examples I mean, all of us, or some people mentioned already that there are competitions in Ukraine. Competitions are surprisingly almost in every country. And this idea exists. It's only the question how often and how regular it is used and how well established. So this is examples of projects who are not results of competitions, of course. However, I can imagine that there can be idea competitions for the very fast projects, where a support framework is created to convince more than these individuals who, for whatever good reasons, they contributed their ideas, to convince more people to come up with solutions for the immediate crisis. There's a project which is a bit similar to the project that you've shown from the Near East. This is in Morocco, and I think that's a very valid example for your situation here, because it was in an extreme underdeveloped part of a UNESCO World Heritage Center of Fez. It's the largest Arab city center in the world. However, living conditions were dramatically bad for those inhabitants who were actually working there. Life expectation was under 50 years. They were basically working with really bad materials, and the water in the river was heavily polluted, etc., etc. So there was a program by the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which is a fund from the US, who gives funds, a lot of funds, like the World Bank and all these guys. They have a lot of money, and in these programs, and that's programs that you will also hopefully receive support from, they need a framework how to spend this money. There are procurement methods, and there are big books, and you have to apply, you have to fill out hundreds of forms, etc., etc. And there's a small little chapter in this guideline book of all of them. There are design competitions, part of it. So one guy in this organization in Washington, D.C. had a neighbor who was an architect, and this guy told his neighbor, hey, this is a project where maybe architects can also help. It's not only about a social issue, it's also about an urban question. So long story short, we got somehow the job to organize this competition for a little quarter in this UNESCO World Heritage, how to upgrade the situation in a way that people can still continue living there, so not create a Disneyland something, and but still make it better for living. And this is a result that it's implemented now, and it's I think one of the most successful projects in Arab old towns, that it is possible both to somehow bridge aesthetically between the old tradition and the new, and to create a frame where it's affordable for people to continue living. And of course, urbanistically, it's also quite interesting. So this is both in terms of the task, but also the methodology with a bank in behind, quite successful. Second is about densification. I mean, we are here in an area which is not only an old industrial area, it is also not very dense. And I can imagine that there are situations in the country where you have to think about the future and to densify. We heard yesterday the lecture that the densification cannot just go by spreading the city further on. You cannot go into to build towers everywhere, or you may not do that. So a densification of places can be a task. So this was a university campus, actually, which was a classical North American campus somewhere outside of town, and they realized, hey, this is not really sustainable, that people are commuting every day from the city to the campus. So they want to enlarge the campus and to create an own district where housing and a real small town will develop. And this was the process. There was a lot of participation, by the way. This was First Nation ground, a very new way of participation that I learned, I can tell you. And we had an open competition with a fantastic result, and long story. The same, this is what was just mentioned by Natalia. Yes, of course. I mean, these projects, they happen also in high developed places. This is a huge project we're just doing in Berlin for a former plant area of Siemens. So 70 hectares and heavy participation process, both with neighbors, but also with a lot of professionals. I mean, the term of participation means also the involvement of various administrations. I mean, that only is already a big challenge to involve not only the mayor and maybe his brother architects or something. There are hundreds and hundreds of departments which need to be involved, need to participate, and that is also a process you need to design. So Fulke was completely right. I mean, this process, the design of the process, is a big important step forward. That's another project funded by a bank, World Bank project in university, and I see already that I'm too slow. You can make that for small scale projects. That is something I was discussing with the Ukraine Chamber of Architects here. Sometimes school projects and kindergartens will be needed a lot. So I can imagine very well to encourage good planners in the West through this instrument of competition to make proposals for also small scale projects. So they don't need to be always for these monster projects like the reconstruction of, oops, I was too fast, of a museum, or of course a memorial like the one for the Heavenly 100 Heroes in Moscow. And I need to present that also. Looking back in history in Berlin, there was the situation of this beautiful place which was presented yesterday already, a functioning 19th century area, and during war it was almost completely demolished. And the question of the reconstruction was discussed, and there was the implementation of design competition. Of course, it was from the time of the 50s, and we can discuss that in terms of urban design. However, this was a very lucky example of this kind of design approach, because it was implemented with highest quality of architecture and design. So nowadays, this area is of top value, and it's my office in the top left, actually. And it functions very well because it's integrated also in the town. And if you look at Berlin, this is a map we've drawn just to remind ourselves what competitions can do. It's not even complete, but all these red dots are result of design competitions. So that's, I think, a good show how design competitions can contribute to the reconstruction of a destroyed city over many years, of course. So, I mean, that's something you must know. It takes time. It does take time, but it's worth. And this is Natalia mentioned. And thanks to Philip Moiser, I will be happy to present our book in this year. And that will hopefully help not only you and Ukrainians, but also other people in the world to organize better competitions, because competition is also not like a competition. And this is just after this, we go upstairs and we will present something else. Okay. Ah, yeah, that's too long.
Right. So thank you so much, Benjamin, for sharing so extended experience in actually organizing competitions in so different contexts. And I was actually wondering about actually this context in which you're working, and also connecting to your experience in Ukraine. Like competition, of course, it's something definitely that we need to use as an instrument more actively, but also, for example, the examples which you mentioned about Kyiv, they have very complicated political context, and it was actually something that probably doesn't help to move so smoothly with the process. And I was wondering, also relying on your experience, what might be actually what could help to use this instrument in Ukrainian context, also in this context of war already, more effectively, and what actually could be the barrier for doing that?
I mean, maybe to start with the last part of the question first. The advantage of design is you can do that anywhere, and it doesn't affect the physical world in the first moment, but it takes time. So it's worth to start thinking. I believe also that it's a motivating instrument, that when you start thinking about the future and you start designing a future place, it will help just to survive mentally. Yes, Kiev was difficult politically and the people, but don't worry. I mean, people are very difficult in many places, so it's not the only place. You have to be courageous to stand up and to be brave and to be confident that is right what you're doing. This, of course, leads to the fact that, I mean, in this case, yes, we were invited and we are very well experienced, and we can show this confidence, and we can convince maybe even the mayors and these guys of people. That's not always the case. So I think the best solution is to spread this knowledge, and to have not only a few people who are powerful enough and who are also established among the colleagues, that it is not only these few projects. So we need more people who are doing it. And here the grassroots projects, I think, can help a lot. And they are at least as important also for me to do small projects in small villages. And I was impressed by these projects in the small towns of Kiev that you've shown, of Ukraine that you've shown. And but all of them rely on these individuals who are, on the one hand, organizing it and helping, but also who are trusting in that moment on the municipality side, etc. Only together you can do it. And the worst is that once the competition is done, everybody's celebrating the result. It's not done yet. That's the big risk. What happens afterwards? That it's really implemented, because that's the whole reason why we're doing it. It's not a theater show for the moment. It should be the beginning of an implementation. And there again, we are in Kiev in not an easy situation, and not only because of war. But that's another long story.
Thank you so much for these answers. Is there any questions? Please, Andriy.
Okay, actually, my question continues what you just said. So from personal experience of our studio of winning architectural competitions, it often happens so that you win with one proposal, then you start communicating with the client, and the appetites start growing, and you understand that you just have to redo everything if you want to satisfy those appetites. Otherwise, you have to stand back and don't do anything. So are there some instruments that are used worldwide to protect architect from this happening?
I mean, as always, there's not one answer, and then I think there should be no dogma. And sometimes the appetite is good, because to start collaborating with your client may also upgrade the quality of your project. But on the other hand, what you're asking for is probably, I mean, compare the same with the situation that you get the direct commission. There's nobody who is protecting you when the appetite is growing and the client is sending you home. You started nicely, but do another version and do one more version, etc., etc. So there's no really security belt for you. If you start a project with a competition, it means you start by involving many people. There is public awareness. There is maybe more involvement of the municipalities. So that helps to have more shoulders that may help you protecting the original idea of your designs. I think that there's no legal power, special weapon that I can show you that is working all over the world. I mean, at the end, it's your responsibility to convince the client where he's not making good proposals. No project that no proposal that helped the project, and you may involve others to convince the client. And I mean, there are some cases where we instrumented or we installed that some jury members would remain in the project as kind of a supervisor body. That is valid if it's big projects and if you have willing architects and designers on the jury who understand, hey, this is an important project, and it's not bad that we also show up once in a while, that things are continuing well. That's maybe a small weapon.
Yes, please, Peter.
It's maybe I think maybe it's also an answer to your question, and I think Benno actually mentioned it at the beginning, that it's important to work on the brief, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. And there you can work with the client at the beginning and really ask the question, so that then when the project is ready, there is not so much of changes. Yeah. And that's, I will be talking about it upstairs in a minute, but that's actually the most important to achieve the success of the competition, to spend really even half a year on the brief, and then you don't have these problems. But maybe,
well, I mean, that's our responsibility. And usually when I describe our job, I'm taking an example of a villa. We made once a competition for a villa, believe it or not. It was a wealthy couple, and they had used already a couple of architects, and they always failed because they couldn't agree. So we were involved, and then it was like a therapy with these two. Really discuss how do they cook and what's in relation to the garden, and there's a tree in the garden, should it stay or not, and let's talk to the neighbor. I mean, really small scale, but this attitude you can use in every bigger and very large project. I mean, you have to be nasty as a competition organizer and ask nasty questions. Do you own the land? Do you have money? because we don't want to end up that the competition result is not implemented. And we had only a few projects where we gave up very early. We said, no, I mean, this is not the way it goes. I mean, we had hundreds of requests, not hundreds, but many from Arab countries. Make a competition. I'll give you 6 weeks. Hallelujah. I mean, that's not the way to do it.
Okay, so thank you so much for this very practical insights and so for the inspiration. Thanks again.